welcome to another episode of Movie Talk with the Brothers Krynn. I'm your host, Seriously, and in this episode, we're going to be talking about The Princess Bride. So how are you guys doing today?
Good.
Great.
I managed to squeeze in time to see not only this movie, but the Nostalgia Critic review of it.
That's a name I haven't heard in
Which,
a very long time.
yeah, it just popped up into my feed. I have no idea why. I was looking in for Princess Bride on YouTube, and Nostalgia Critic pops up.
I actually ran
So,
into him in person a long
oh
time ago.
really?
It was at
What
NebraskaCon. It was my one
was
time
that?
I've ever went to NebraskaCon. It was just a big anime and hobby convention
Yeah.
in Nebraska. Like it was years
What
ago.
was that?
It was interesting. I kind of hit that point where I was like, I'm starting to get too old for conventions, because then you realize the majority of there's 16-year-old girls running around wearing anime costumes, and you're trying to avert your gaze at every freaking turn. I was like, I don't want to do this shit anymore. It's
Yeah, I get that.
like
What about I? Uh, yeah. What was he like?
I just kind of we just kind of walked past and kind of brushed past me or whatever. So it was like a thing, whatever. He
Oh,
seemed okay. He seemed like, obviously, like, people are different than their online personas.
yeah.
I really like to
He,
meet James Rolfe in person, though. He seems pretty cool.
yeah. He seems pretty chill.
Yeah, I've talked to
I
Mike
like that.
Matei before. I did a
Oh.
video covering.
Mhm.
It was Mike Matei was talking about how older games are a lot more challenging than like a lot of the newer games, and people felt a certain way about that. And I was like, no, I kind of agree with what he said, and he actually thanked me. So I was like, oh, that's cool. It's, the internet's a weird place, and I wind up running into people I would have had no idea that I would have met, like, in any other circumstance. So yeah,
Yeah. Honestly, I forgot about him
yeah.
till earlier on. Why not watch it? His review was a lot more toned down than I thought it would be, and um,
This movie,
mostly he was just
well, this
oh
movie's like really revered, so it's hard to find people like spewing any sort of negativity towards it.
yeah. I then watched his Beauty and the Beast review, and he it was very toned down as well. He's really toned down his energy compared to before, and it's now more just he's back to doing the like those early reviews where he just shows snippets of the movie and comments. He's not really cracking as many jokes, just making idle observations about the movie and what he likes and whatnot. So it's something which um, I kind of like it better that way.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
notice a lot of YouTubers are, well, a lot of the old school ones are kind of going back to basics sort of thing. The reasons why people actually love them in the first place.
I think it's that they're just tired of being wacky and whatnot.
Well, it's that, and just the nature of YouTube itself, where like now the algorithm just picks and chooses who wants to be in the limelight, and things like that. I really despise that mentality.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
maybe there's also the possibility that when they're young, they feel like they could engage with a lot more of the aspects of the high energy, high entertainment, sometimes drama filled aspects.
but
But
then they get worn out.
they reach their 30s and they're like, no, let's just try and go a bit more milk toast.
Yeah,
I'm in my 40s, and the thing for me is trying to find the time to actually do things. Is just in my mid 40s with two kids, two like fairly young kids. It's really tough to find a time to do things these days.
yeah, I get that. Um, the interesting thing with Nostalgia Critic though is I didn't expect him to pick up this particular movie, and looking at his review, um, it seems his favorite parts were the Inigo Montoya stuff. Um, and and watching the movie itself, I'll say Inigo is probably the most entertaining part, along with Wesley, or I should say, Dread Pirate Roberts, because the movie, w- well, the movie when it starts off is involves the kid and his grandpa who wants to read him a story, and this is something which I'll be honest, this was kind of the norm for our family growing up, with
Yeah,
parents reading to us and whatnot. But I've since found out that, as a school teacher, that most kids these days, well, for a time, kids did not have this done to their, like, read to them.
probably like in the 90s to the early 2000s.
Yeah, like I grew up in the '90s, and like we always had our parents read to us, then we read ourselves, and it was just the way it was done. But nowadays, apparently, it's changed, and I'm noticing though there's more and more calls by Gen Y and Zoomer parents to return to this.
I
I think,
have I have noticed that, and this is something that's kind of been on the discussion for a while, but a lot of post Gen Z, or kind of like like on the tail end of the generation, and the next couple of generations after that, they have been tracking really closer to a lot of the uh, kind of old school conservatism. Not like the political aspect of it, just the wholesomeness of wanting to spend time with family, wanting to read, wanting to like kind of get away from the more wackier aspects of the internet and social media at large.
yeah, overall, it has to be stated that um, it seems like, and this is something I really like about Gen Y and Gen Z, like the entire age block from 18 to 40
Mm-hmm.
has basically been displaced by, let's be honest, people pouring in en masse by the millions. But what it's done for this generation that I'm so proud of is that it has hearkened them to go back to their roots. You know what I mean? Like, well, okay, what's the stuff we loved, or like that we missed out on as kids that our great grandparents or something did, and
Yeah, going
this
outside
is,
basically.
yeah, and they seem like, the interesting thing is that it is the younger generations which are reviving tradition, because there was an entire block of the baby boomer Gen X generations that tossed it out. And now tradition is being restored. And this is important because like tradition keeps us bound together. It's the social glue along with language, but let's not even get into that. But with this grandpa who shows up to read to his grandson, this is very much like this was the norm at one time. Like grandparents or parents spent time with their kids.
Yeah, I mean,
And,
I my family was kind of different. My mother more read to me than anything else. My mother is
yeah,
kind of a she was one of the bigger proponents of literacy and speaking properly and things that usually would get you made fun of in the black community, because you're actually willing to be an educated, intelligent person. But it was one of those things for me. It was my mother. She was a teacher too, so it was, we spoke properly in the house. We left all the slang outside. Pretty much read a lot. I was reading. She swore up and down that I started reading it too. So it was one of those things where I was basically her friend. I was like the little circus guy or whatever. Or I felt like I was treated like a circus act or whatever. It's like, oh look, uh, this little kid can actually read or whatever before he hit the age of 3. Let's go ahead and give him comic books and all sorts of things or whatever. And we want him to read it to us because we're so enamored by this idea. And that's kind of part of it. So like a lot of that stuff is, I didn't have, well, my grandfather died when I was really, really young. So And most of my stuff with my grandmother, most of my interactions with my grandmother is watching soap operas because that's when I went over to her house or whatever. She was like all up in her soaps, so it's different experiences. But I can relate a lot with Fred Savage and Peter Falk in that scene.
Yeah, and um, yeah, this kid is clearly someone who likes his games, and he's just a kid,
Yeah,
like
it's
a bunch of little boys
I
in that
had
age.
false memories about that scene of the opening scene because I swear he was playing a Nintendo Entertainment System like when I was a kid, and then I realized like no, that's probably like a Commodore 64 or some or an Amiga. Um,
Uh, um, and what's also interesting is um, how he will interrupt throughout the story to say, like, "I hope this isn't a kissy story."
yeah, yeah. Are you trying to trick me? Is this a trick?
Yeah, which honestly, kids are that sly.
Yeah,
Um,
they're smarter than we give them credit for.
they're smarter than the average bear. I remember being very amused when I was, well, the last teaching contract I had. The kids wanted me to read books to them in the class, and it was like I remember at one point one of the boys, well, roughly translated what he said was, "Can we just get to the sword fights?"
Yeah, let's get to the
And
action.
then yeah, and yet ironically, because the girls always followed where the boys led in these classes, yeah, the girls, yeah, we just want sword fights.
That's an
Um,
interesting turn of events because
but the girl, this was in the grade 6 class, the girls just followed where the boys led. So like when I asked them, okay, what do you think is the best, like would be the best book to read in this class? The girls pretty much said, what do the boys think? While the boys just began shouting out answers.
mm, well,
Um,
that sounds right though. It kind of is like different, but at the same time, they're social creatures, and boys are a little bit more brash and they get straight to the point in terms of things that they want.
yeah, that was a fun class to teach though.
So we got a
That's
chatter.
always a fun age range to teach and such.
Oh yeah, the 12-year-olds are really, really fun. Although I'll be honest, the girls hitting puberty was uncomfortable because um, they're, well, they start making comments,
Yeah,
and you're like, okay, listen, shut up, you little hormonal brat.
they test
Um,
they like to test you and kind of throw out a bunch of things to see how you react to. I'm kind of dealing with that now with my daughter. So she's she's hitting to
yeah,
that she's getting real close to that level.
yeah. Of course, you can't really tell them to shut up because it's, it's not
But
you're not allowed.
you can't beat your children. You can't beat other
Yeah.
people's children.
Yeah. Ironically, the 12-year-old boys are the funnest because they're smarmy little guys, and
Oh, the South is always
they're sassy, but they're respectful.
Yeah,
yeah.
The the girls, it's like they'll either flirt with the other teachers, the other boys, and it's like, listen, you're 12, fuck off. Um,
yeah. It's it gets really weird after a certain point. I've only been a
and
custodian for like 5 years, but I've seen that happen, and I immediately like shut that down.
yeah, uh, and the boys are just easier to deal with. Not gonna lie. That said, the interesting thing is when it comes to this movie, the kid is clearly like a 11 or 12 or something, and he's feeling full smarmy. Um, but this story is so low budget, but it's so good.
Yeah,
Like,
this is clearly Rob Reiner. This is probably one of his most revered films that he's ever made. We got chatters, by the way. Fallen King says the reason why the young are embarrassing traditions is that uh, they have not experienced the downsides of tradition. Also, they don't realize that we're here due to traditions.
well, I'll say this. From what I can tell, there's few downsides. That's my opinion. There's very few downsides to tradition, because if you look at how civilization was like 100 years ago, and how people carried themselves, and how happiness levels were higher, uh, versus being cut off from tradition, like I'll take tradition. Thank you.
Mhm. Johnny Movie Watcher says, I thought it was going to be about the 40th anniversary of today being the Last Dragon, or the anniversary of Friday the 13th, Part 4, A New Beginning. Or,
Oh, we should do that in the future down the road.
well, yeah, was it, 4 was the 4 was the final chapter, 5 was the new beginning, but yeah.
Not five, not five, please. I saw that a few times, and no, it hurts more and more every time I watch it.
Oh,
He's
we
still
we did
therapy for it.
we did a new
Yeah.
beginning for boss fight at the movies, and we kind of we ran that through its paces.
Yeah, but as for this movie, we're immediately introduced to Wesley and Buttercup, which the latter's name is just Oi, Oi V. Well, let's just
Interesting
say
choice of
she's
names.
yeah, let's just say she's a real Buttercup.
I mean, she's
As
blonde
for
and she's pretty, so I guess that kind of works. But
yeah, and as for Wesley, Carrie Elwes really steals the show as the character.
Carrie always has charisma for days. I'm gonna put that out there.
Yeah, yeah, he's got charisma in spades, and he's both crude and yet charming.
He
And
he has this way of making his crudeness even more charming.
yeah, it's something in some of the English. They can make even making comments like, "There are not enough perfect breasts in this world, and it'd be a shame to
Shame if
deprive you of yours." It's like it's utterly crass, but he just makes it seem classy.
yeah, that line threw
It's
me for a loop because I did not remember that being in the my first 10 viewings of this film as a child.
sorry. Yeah, it's like, wow, I didn't remember that line either, and I went,
It's like,
wow.
where did that come from? I, I can understand your point, but where did that come from?
Yeah. And then you've got, of course, the kidnapping, which was utterly freaking hilarious.
It was like I that's another one where I was like, wait, she really there's a sound bite that my co-host from RNH would play, and what the fuck are you, 7? How did you fall for this?
Inconceivable.
Hey, I was going to say that.
I
So
don't know the guy's name, but the actor who's the tiny Sicilian is just hilarious.
Wallace Shaw, Vizzini is the character's name. Vizzini, I I figured I thought he had way more parts in this movie than just where he was, but it was really good. I liked I also liked the camaraderie between Fezzik and Inigo Montoya.
Yeah, you can tell they're chummy with each other, and they're both long suffering, having to deal with Vicini.
I mean, with that voice,
Oh yeah,
Inconceivable.
I mean he shows up in like when you see him in other things in like 80s, 90s, and early 2000s media, you can definitely tell it's him because
Yeah,
he's Bob's boss in The Incredibles.
yeah.
yeah. I
And
was wondering where I heard that voice.
he's also, ironically, he got given the main villain role in King's Quest from 2015.
Oh, that makes sense. I mean, it's probably through this movie, I'm sure.
Yeah, it was. He plays a goblin who uses his wits to learn magic and try to ruin the life of King Graham. But in that role, he's far crueler and far more unlikable than Vicini.
Yeah,
But what's
Vizzini. Yeah.
interesting is that uh, the actor throws his all into the role. Like he took the role very seriously, and he's very good in the role.
Yeah,
Um,
he's very well
regarded.
yeah. better voice acting choice than Young, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good one. I know Fallen King said he's a voice actor mainly, and he did a couple of stints on the Cosby Show. I remember him showing up as one of the parents, and he just kind of he plays a normal guy. I think he's like a dentist or something like that. And well, you see him, you're like, oh, that's the guy from The Princess Bride.
Yeah, and what I liked was how he's just giving so much shit to Physic, where he's like, I do not accept failure. Your job is on the line and stuff. And it's like, dude, he's literally carrying, like, he's literally got you holding your life in his hands.
He could crush you
And
if
you're
he
gonna,
wanted to. Clearly.
and you're gonna bite his head off. And the
Did I?
funny thing is,
Oh, what was it?
but
One line he said was, my ears mistaking me, or did I clearly hear you say that you were thinking or something along those lines?" And I was like, "Damn, that's cruel."
and what's funny is that I've actually worked for people like Vicini, where it's like they just, you know what I mean? Like you've basically got their life in their hands, and they're bitching at you, and you're going,
I've worked with people like that, yeah.
yeah. It's like
It's like,
usually when I've dealt with them, they've been upper management, and it's like,
yep,
uh,
it's upper management, and it's for me, it was always retail.
yeah, and it's like, uh,
There's a reason why that one scene in The Incredibles is fantasy for everyone.
yeah, everyone who's basically a peasant, like,
Chucking such a boss through all those walls.
and the problem is, I've only ever had bosses like that. I'm gonna be honest, I've rarely, if
Hmm.
I can't recall the last time I actually had a boss who was decent.
I have some decent bosses, but it's usually it's a mix of both, because
Ah,
retail seems to draw out the most wildest
assholes.
personalities.
Well, second most to education. Trust me, you work in education. I find
I can see it.
yeah, most superintendents or principals are usually like, if it's not one, it's the other, or it's both, and you're like,
It's hit or miss, in my opinion.
although I will say older teachers, like who aren't given the job of managing the school, are usually really good and should be managing the school. They're like, there's a
Oh,
certain Gen X or baby boomer woman whom honestly could teach every subject perfectly and is
hmm.
just ideal for managing a school, but they're never given the job because they don't want the job.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. And
I,
usually
I'm
it gets Peter Principle plays a large part of that whole thing too.
yeah, but that being said, like, um, hold on, I'll just no, actually, I did have one boss who was nice
Okay.
a long time ago. So never mind.
I was gonna say it takes a while. It takes a while to kind of remember that, especially if you're traumatically blocking out a lot of that.
Yeah, it's just like, well, after, let me see. Well, it's just since around 2019, I've had mostly shitty bosses. So,
I've had my last well, this job, the principal I worked with before, the principal I had currently was really good. I mean, we both butted heads, but we're both kind of workaholics, so we
yeah,
approach
yeah,
things differently. And I feel like I kind of had a similar thing with our current principal, because it's like that first year, she was trying to find her footing, and I'm trying to kind of do the established stuff. And I have a certain way. I'm usually left to my own devices. This will be your own boss type situation. So I'll pretty much get my way done. But she kind of came in wanting things done in a particular sort of way. So I've had to kind of work around a lot of that, and we've gotten a lot more uh, understanding of our ways. I guess that's the best way I could put it. And she really just knows that I regardless of how she feels about how I do things, things get done, and then they get done in the best possible way when I do it. And I'm just
yeah.
I'm trying to hold back on my I'm always right, or I have this joke that I make with my wife. I'm not a control freak. I'm just happy when everything goes my way.
Yeah, which I guess you could describe Vicini that way. He's not a control freak. He just likes that everything be done his way.
Yes.
And yet, when working in education, the only person that treated me that way was a Gen Xer. Everyone else were Gen Ys, and they were slow to work with.
Well, I had like 2 Gen Y and 1 baby boomer person in education, and they like treated me like utter garbage.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is, the grade 6 teacher was, I think, like Gen X version of baby boomer, utterly sweet, and was always on my side. But that was a senior staff member, and she was just like, "I'm 1 year from retirement. Fuck this shit. I'm out. Like, I'm passing on to you everything I know, but like, I gotta get I gotta get the fuck out."
It's like Danny
And-
Glover and Lethal Weapon. I'm close to
getting
retirement.
too
Get too old for the shit. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. I still remember, anyways, but yeah, Vicini just like, "Oh, you're a failure," dude. He could drop you. A little gratitude.
Yeah,
But
he
the
was
fact-
he was way up his own ass though, in his own intellect period or whatever.
Yeah, he's not as smart as he thinks he is.
In fact, I found he was probably the dumbest of those 3.
That's kind of the irony and the funny part about it, because like
Yeah.
he basically kind of overthought a lot of that situation. Like he probably would have won the test of wits had he not overthought the shit out of it.
Yeah. That's the joke. Like the 3 tests were just, I thought were really fun. Like just
Yeah,
the test of speed, where he has to sword fight an ego, was probably the best part.
I felt that had a lot of like really good chemistry in it. And I want to point out something that in the chat. Johnny says, "I own the book. Many of the iconic lines are from the book directly." There's I was looking up a couple of factoids for the film. It turns out that apparently the director, obviously, Rob Reiner and Cary Elwes had been all familiar with the book before they were even chosen to work on the movie. So a lot of Cary Elwes is the reason why he probably was so great in the movie is because he read the book when he was 13.
What I liked was just the, I just like how when he reaches the top, there's that moment between him and an ego. You would happen to have 6 fingers. And that entire thing where he explains his backstory of his dad, the 6-fingered man, who's I think Baron Reuben?
Mm-hmm.
And
Count Rugen. Count Rugen.
Yeah, Count Rugen. And just that, like, that was fascinating. Because that sort of thing where the character explains his own backstory, you don't really see that in a lot of books and stories these days. And it's something which, like these days people keep saying, well, less is more. No, more is more. And what the thing is, the character should speak of, like, I want to know more about the character. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
When it comes to character backstories or just like how it's relevant to the plot, like no, you should probably put out enough to you. Well, I've been reading was it manga practice and theory by Araki, and he was kind of pointing out that no, you should lay out a character's motivations to make them more relatable to the reader.
you have to. And the thing with Inigo is he absolutely must lay out his um his motivations. But it's like, how does he word it? It's where he says, he's asked, "And what would you do when you find him?" I would probably say to him, "Hello, my name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father."
Prepare to die.
Yeah. And it's also interesting how we have there the very old idea of chivalry where he doesn't just simply attack Wesley. He just,
It gives him
the
a
two
minute
go
to like regain his wind. and
Yeah.
pretty much tries to feel him out and figure out what type of person he is. I liked that aspect of it too, because it's kind of a. Actually, I've seen this more in. If I were to relate this to anything, it kind of reminds me of Hokuto no Ken, where you start finding out about the additional characters like Rei when Kenshiro meets Rei, and they kind of, even though they're from different like schools of martial arts, whatever, they get to know each other and gain a camaraderie and become actually really close friends.
Oh, and that's where, when it comes to this, I think that the idea of pushing forward chivalry in this style, like, you know what I mean? Because this is chivalry.
Mm-hmm.
This is them basically showing courtesy
Mm-hmm.
and even asking, like, "Are you ready for the sword fight?" Respectfully to one another. This is very, very kind of old school, like in that you have that kind of Christian European, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Mentality where, well, I can't just hit him. Why? Well, I gotta let him get up and pick up his sword. Then we're gonna have our fight. Like, I might as well show him some dignity and honor. And you don't really see this in a lot of movies these days, but this is one of the most interesting parts about the scene, and it does strike at people, I've noticed. And the sword fight itself is glorious. It's one of the best of the 80s.
It's the what I like about it, it's the character's personality shine through, and it's just like a
Mhm.
massive show of one-upsmanship.
Yeah.
What I like about this scene is that it seems to recall back to an older style. Like, yeah, you have the boy and his grandfather. It seems something very 80s style. But an aspect of this of the story
Hmm.
itself with Dread Pirate
Roberts.
Roberts and Inigo Montoya seems like it falls back to
Fairy story.
fairy stories like in the 60s.
To an extent. And it seems more like it's taken from a Robin Hood storybook from the 1920s or 1910s. But I think that was kind of the inspiration.
Yeah, I was purely intentional.
Yeah. Although um, the defeat of Inigo is also interesting because Inigo even goes so far as to beg for death, and he's not killed. And Wesley compares him to a prized art piece and says, well, no, it's like an artist. That's what he calls him.
Yeah,
He's
he
an
calls him an
artist.
artist. Yeah, it would be a shame
And
to rid the world of a great artist such as yourself or something like that.
yeah, and it shows the amount of respect, even admiration he has for Inigo. And it's something that, like you don't see anymore. Like the closest, I'll say, I'll compare it to one sword fight from the early 2000s where it eschewed chivalry, but it did so in an interesting way, and that was Star Wars Episode 3 at the end
Mm.
between Vader and Obi-Wan. But with Vader and Obi-Wan, I don't expect there to be any chivalry because Vader's kind of thrown that out the window, along with a bunch of younglings. But let's not get into that. And Mace Windu. But
Yeah, fair
the
enough.
thing, the thing is, Anakin, like, doesn't he's not interested in fighting fair or even honorably. That's a total contrast to this fight. So this is like the anti Episode 3 fight, where the two have a lot of respect for each other and even admiration, and both walk away because the victor is merciful and kind.
I kind of looked at
Yeah,
it a different way. The was it the Mask of Zorro?
yeah, it's
Where
also like that.
yeah, because I looked at it, it kind of reminded me of Antonio Banderas training with Don
Yeah,
Diego.
I would say the Mask of Zorro probably had the best sword fight of the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
And but then we got Physic versus versus Wesley, and boy, was that a
Well, it was clearly a one-sided fight, but he had to outsmart him in order to beat him.
yeah. it was a pretty fun part. Um, and of course, you then get uh, Vicini, who is like, Socrates, Plato, Seneca, and all the rest of those
Aristotle,
guys.
yeah.
Aristotle, idiots,
Morons.
morons. And it's like, you arrogant little prick.
Yeah.
It's inconceivable that he couldn't go into a bit more detail about
But the
philosophy.
best part about him using that word is, I just like how you have an ego at one point. You keep using that word. I do not think it means what you think it means.
It's inconceivable how a minor mind like him could understand a great one like Vicini.
Yeah, you're trolling now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, just the fact that Inigo, who speaks Spanish more than English, is like, I don't think that means what you think it means. And the three definitely had good chemistry. They should have had their own movie.
It really did feel like a Spaniard, a Sicilian, and a Frenchman walk into a bar.
Kind of. Kind of. And of course, Vicini gets completely clobbered mentally. And I like how Wesley does point out, I've been developing an immunity to that toxin these past few years.
Yeah,
like,
I can. Yeah, it makes sense. And I was thinking that too after watching this. I haven't watched this movie in years, and I watched this earlier today, and I was like clearly he poisoned both of them. And if Vizzini was smart enough, he would have understood, like, oh, you poisoned both of those. If I were you in that situation, I knew I would switch the glasses, I would have poisoned both.
Yeah, and I wonder what he would have done had he known. I don't think he would have drunk from either of them.
I think that was the point where he probably would have resorted to violence, because that's the only way to get out of that situation.
But the problem is he can't, because Wesley would just grab his wrist.
Well, I was thinking Wesley would just sock him one and knock. He would have knocked him out like he would have knocked out the other two. But I mean, I think the thing with both Physic and Inigo, like, he actually didn't genuinely want to hurt them. They were just obstacles on his way.
Yeah. And then you've got, of course, after Vicini, it gets hilarious with how, we have the fire swamp.
Yeah, the fire swamp was interesting.
Yeah, I liked it. And I like that we got the backstory of Dread Pirate Roberts, where, what was it? The previous guy would, where it's like, what was it? And this went on for 3 years, where he'd tell me, "Good night, Wesley. I'll probably kill you in the morning." And eventually drives him into the private quarters and says, "Yeah, I'm not actually Roberts. I'm Ryan." And the guy before him, I forget what his name was. And then it's like, oh, and that guy was trained by the actual Roberts, who's now been retired for 15 years and is enjoying life and living it like a king. So that they're now on Roberts number 4. And at the end of the movie, we're going to be on Roberts number 5.
Yeah. It kind of reminds me of The Phantom, where the whole point of The Phantom is the Phantom is a culmination of the entire bloodline of Kit Walker's, like, family. Every male in that family is named Kit Walker. He's trained to become the Phantom. He's the Phantom. So the ghost that walks is just generations of males in that family. So it's kind of the same thing. Pirate Roberts is more of an idea or a symbol than an actual like person himself. Which is it's interesting. That's an interesting concept.
It might sound weird, but I actually think it would be interesting to see this sort of thing used in a movie or something.
Well, I mean, it's an idea that's rarely used, and the only time it's really used is in popular, like, well, I guess The Phantom is a comic book movie, but it's a pretty popular comic book movie, even though it's like on the lower scale of comic book movies.
And yeah, so it's one of those things where I would like to see it done like in fantasy or like with a pirate or something.
Mhm.
Mask of Zorro kind of went with this,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
yeah, and Zorro is kind of more swashbuckling, pulp, and I just wonder like, how well would such a story do? So I'm just kind of pondering it right now.
Well, with the outfit that Wesley had, I mean, it very was reminiscent of Zorro.
Yeah, yeah, it's yeah, but this is what's also interesting is that he he kept the previous Roberts as his first mate for a bit until he was comfortable in the role, and that guy just decided, okay,
Yeah,
um, you know, I'm retiring now, so
he had to
uh,
make the crew believe that Wesley was actually Dread Pirate Roberts before he decided to go and retire. And I was like, that's interesting. It's kind of like a pyramid scheme where
hmm.
you okay, now everybody else under this person is believing that this person is going to make them wealth. So I'm going to go take my money and leave. You go make your money and then you can go leave. And if you want to bring somebody else on, whatever, you very well can.
And it doesn't seem like they really care too much after they've retired, except
No.
that the name lives on.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's such a fascinating idea.
It's a great idea. If you're willing to take that up and use it in your writing, whatever, by all means. Like I would love to see that play out.
Yeah, I'll have to make a note.
Hmm.
Um,
So the entire concept of legacy for them,
it's very different than other stuff. Like, um, but as to, um, of course, we also have the romantic plot between Buttercup and Wesley, which
Yeah.
is a major part. Weirdly, I kind of think meh towards it. I'm not wowed by it, to be
yeah, the
honest.
kissy parts were a little boring.
Eh.
Well,
Uh,
I feel like that was by design too, because Fred Savage being the everyman character, kind of, or the audience analog, kind of was there to point out that yeah, the kissy parts aren't really that important, but by the end of the story, you're like, yeah, let them kiss.
yeah, okay. Um, until you realize Robin Wright really didn't age well.
The wall comes for us all, I suppose.
Yeah. Weirdly, Carrie Ellis has aged very well.
Oh, that
Still
man,
looks very
that
young.
man ages like honey on like fine silk.
There's a reason we need an old man Robin Hood movie,
Yes.
and
The,
he should star in it because he has a natural English accent. He's not like the other guys.
the chat has some things to say here. If
Uh-oh.
if dueling were still legal, I'm sure we would still have dueling. Even gangs would probably favor dueling, which I can
Oh,
see that.
oh yeah.
Oh, definitely.
I think we should revive it. I'm entirely serious. Let's
Uh,
just revive it, damn
10
it.
paces and then
Because
shoot. I feel like that's more masculine. I feel like being having a duel where you just 10 paces, turn and shoot. That would be a hell of a lot more masculine. Or what was it? One of the was it one of the presidents basically was shot in a duel, turned around and killed the guy, and then went up to give his speech. Like
tell
right after.
you, no, Andrew Jackson, I think it is.
Yeah, Jackson's a beast. I I remember reading about Andrew Jackson in middle school, and I was like, Jesus Christ, who is this man?
I remember, well, I remember reading up about Roosevelt, and he was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
He was not as much of a beast as John A. MacDonald,
Mm.
who, like, John A. though was a drunkard who honestly was just a weirdo. Like, inadvertently setting himself on fire when he was drunk. Well, he fell asleep and with
He dropped a
for
cigarette or a
some reason, a
cigar.
candle pressed against his sheets or something. Like,
Oh,
But he did, I think, at one point set himself deliberately on fire, and people were confused as to why, and he didn't know why he did it. He just thought, "Well, I was drunk. I don't know." But he's also a guy who would drunkenly recite Hamlet. I can't do it when I'm sober from memory, so like, high IQ, I guess. But given how he set himself on fire at least twice, I don't know, like how high IQ he was, considering the man lit himself on fire.
maybe there's an old school version of Jackass that he was like trying to get going. Hi, hi, I'm Johnny Knoxville, and this is setting myself on fire drunkenly.
If like in terms of leaders who were actually beasts, who went and fought Napoleon, like that guy basically charged into battle with his men.
He had a lot of shit to prove. I mean, Napoleon really was like, he's like, yeah, if you're gonna test me, just test me. He was one of those types of guys.
Yeah, and there's a reason he dominated the age, because dude, the dude was bestial.
One of the positive aspects of short man syndrome.
Yeah, although apparently he was average height for the time.
I know that. I don't know where the historical thing about him being short came from.
Yeah,
I think it was more English propaganda because
Oh,
I think in reality he was 5'7".
yeah,
he
and
was
that is average height for that time period.
Yeah, and like he wasn't Charlemagne, who was like who was like what, I think 6'5". And man, Canada needs Charlemagne. Someone who would charge in himself and just physically dominate everyone around.
I was gonna say, like, being 6'5" is like pretty intimidating. So
Yeah,
that and having a presence and about you, you're pretty much hitting God King status.
yeah. And Humperdinck certainly isn't like that. The dude's,
He's the exact opposite of that.
But
the man can track. Like he tracks.
the fact that early in the movie, the poison that what Wesley used was said to be odorless.
Odorless,
But-
yeah, and tasteless.
And then later he's like, "This is this poison."
Well, I think it's that he knows it because it's odorless.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
and it was in the vial. So anything usually that was going to be used for espionage or whatever purposes, whatever, you would keep it in a vial. So potions, poisons, things like that.
And what's more is that as for what I like next is that you have he's after the torture scene. He's not dead. He's, what is it?
Mostly dead.
Mostly dead. And it's like, oh, for freak's sakes. When it comes to like character revivals mid-story, this is just, oh my gosh.
Well, the machine that takes life from you, that was kind of like a bit of a stretch. And to have it like take 50 years off of your life, like how old was this man? Was Wesley supposed to be the middle-aged Methuselah? I just happen to have
Maybe.
200 years under my belt. You only took 50 of that. That's fine. I can live 150. It's fine.
Well, and I just like the fact that he's not dead. He's mostly dead. And Inigo, who's just sobered up because he spent the past little while just
Getting
drunk
dumped.
off his well, yeah, drunk off his ass and needing to be waterboarded into sobriety.
The chat. Apparently, what if Ubisoft Skull and Bones told that story? It'd probably be a better game than what it was. Napoleon was slightly above average height, actually.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and he was also feared. The kids still call him Boogeyman to this day.
Interesting.
Well, some of us French call him Discount Charlemagne because he didn't conquer as much as Charlemagne, and he didn't win. Winning is a very important part of our culture. If you're not going to win, like, just go home. I'm joking there, but
It's like a whole country of Vince Lombardis.
of what?
Vince Lombardi, he's a coach.
Uh, okay, yeah. Listen, he did good, but Charlemagne, he kind of conquered most of Europe, and most importantly, he won and lived to be in his 70s. So, uh,
He didn't get killed. He got sent to exile, so at least he won in that aspect.
actually, they did testing. Apparently, he was fed, I think, cyanide.
Oh, okay.
So he was cold-bloodedly murdered, and that's where it's like, ooh,
So they pulled a Wesley. Oh yes, we'll send him
yeah,
back to his boat. Torture him.
yeah, pretty much. And um, yeah, like I was startled to find out he had been murdered. It surprised me. Although the English are still like, yeah, well, and you have the French. Well, damn, you lied to us. But
Napoleon gets murdered. Like, there's evidence that Hitler actually got away to Argentina. Like, the
no,
things you find.
the Hitler Argentina thing is pure myth.
Oh,
Um,
there was something that popped up recently where people were like, "Oh, there might be something to that." I mean, we're
I
finding out about the Giza pyramids too in real time, so who knows?
Yeah, I don't think there will ever be any proof for the Argentina thing. Um, Also, we got to bear in mind after Blondie died and his wife died, Hitler had no desire to live. Um,
Eva Braun, yeah.
yeah, he like I've seen a picture of him and seen a few documentaries. The man basically just wanted to die.
Well, I
So
mean, he kind of had it all and then lost it all, like it's
everything
spectacularly. So,
unraveled.
yeah.
Yeah, like everything unraveled in his life, and we got to bear in mind he was a massive dog lover. So to him, watching his dog die was
Oof, my brain went in a really weird place. He's like,
yeah.
Eva Brown died, and he was a massive dog lover. I was like, oh, jeez. It's like,
No, 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 no. That's not.
I know. It's
But at the same time, like the woman he loved is dead. His dog's dead. Like, what does he have left?
yeah, it was my intrusive thoughts.
Yeah. But that said, with Wesley, I like how Fezzik. Okay, let's just comment on one thing. How I Met Your Mother got one thing right about Fezzik. How at the end of the movie, Inigo says, "Oh, you finally did something right," and but Fezzik has been carrying the movie. He's the one carrying Inigo's entire revenge on his broad shoulders.
And he
Yeah,
literally carried
Wesley.
Wesley to rescue.
Buttercup. Yeah, the guy single-handedly carrying the entire quest,
he
literally
found
on his
yeah
shoulders.
he found Inigo and sobered him up to get him back on the path of his quest, which led him to the castle and
Yeah,
led him to
so
finding like Private Roberts, like aka Wesley. So yeah, it was interesting. But I like the quip he made after that. It's like, hey, you finally did something right. Oh yeah, I won't let it go to my head.
yeah, it's like
Like
yeah, because
I feel like for all the shit talking that Vizzini gave him, whatever, like I'm sure Fezzik was probably just as intelligent as any of the other characters, and he was a little bit more modest about it than Vizzini was. Like,
yeah, yeah, I think so as well. Um, Fezzik was Fezzik. I really like.
yeah,
Um, it's just funny how he's carrying the entire team, and how like ah, just him and Inigo's chemistry was just hilarious to watch.
he was kind of the
And
muscle
then
and the heart in that aspect.
yeah, and I found it particularly impressive because I had forgotten how easily Inigo dispatches the Count's men. Like they don't even last a second, almost. Like you know what I mean? He just clears them out one, two, three, four.
Well, he was training like in the
Yeah.
duel aspect. He trained in many forms of fencing, and apparently in the 5 years that Wesley disappeared, like he was training the same way too. That's why the comparison of the notes in the that duel was just so interesting. Them basically psyching each other out by switching the left-handed style, and just finding what was it? Wesley said he used a particular style because he was on rocky terrain. Well, like there's a lot of thought this is one of those things where if you're watching two master martial artists or two master boxers or two like people that are proficient in their craft like go against each other, or two chess masters, it was kind of one of those things where you're like, yeah, you're really watching something here. Or if you're sitting there with your kid, you're like, hey, sit down here for a second, take a look at this. You're not going to see this very much in your lifetime. You need to understand why this is such a big thing.
Yeah. And then you got the whole chase, and I like how you just have the Fezzik, help me! He's getting away from me. He's getting away from me. Like, what I like is that he's shrieking. Like, you know what I mean? He's acting like he's possessed. He's shrieking. He's raging. He's throwing himself. He's literally jumping in the air and jumping at the door.
Yeah, this is his one opportunity to avenge his father's killer, and he's getting away. He's like,
yeah, he's freaking out about it, and it's so freaking realistic. I'd probably react that way. And Fezzik, just like I said, just a minute. No, no, or something to that effect. I was like, okay, you, putting you here. Like, don't worry, I'll be right back. Goes, just stops an ego, smashes his hand against the door. It goes down, and he motions and he go forward, very gentlemanly like, and that was just hilarious.
Okay, the door's down. You could go.
Yeah, he's like, now I have to go back and get Wesley.
Only for him to have misplaced Wesley, and he's like, I'll go get the horses. I just like how he just rolls with things.
Yeah, he's very relaxed. I like I said, Andre the Giant, aka Andre Rene Rosimov. He was really great in this movie. And this is probably I want to say this is his first acting gig.
I thought it was. I've read somewhere that it may have been more his last acting gig.
Well, he did My Giant after this with Billy Crystal. Or was that somebody else? Maybe I'm thinking that. Hold on a second. I got his IMDb open. We'll look through that real quick. He was actually the last thing he did was in '94, Trading Mom.
Oh, okay.
But that was a TV show. It's not really much like movie stuff.
And
yeah, he's only done 2 movies.
Okay. He was quite good in this one.
So he did this movie, and he did My Giant. He did do My Giant in 1998 with Billy Crystal.
And yeah, then you have the iconic scene between Inigo and Count Rugen.
Really well done.
Hello, my name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die. Hello, you killed my father. My name is Inigo Montoya. Prepare to die. And then, like by the, third time, hello, my name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die.
Well, he almost.
It's the fourth time he's shouting it.
He almost died, and he was kind of regaining his strength. I feel like it was a mantra. Like he was basically just using this to regain what strength he lost through the blood loss.
Yeah, I think he's supposed to be psyching himself up.
Yeah.
And just relying on an adrenaline. He's kind of forcing himself to go full on adrenaline junkie. Like, so he can,
He does seem like a man possessed in that scene, though.
Yeah. And of course, there's the promise me everything, or promise me anything. All that I have and more. I want my father back, you son of a bitch.
That is if ever there was a situation where someone was avenging their loved one or whatever, that is kind of the best way, or last rites, basically, to admit to the person that murdered your loved one. It's beg me for everything that you have. The one thing I want most is my my slain family member to live again. And so nothing you can offer me is on the level of that thing you took from me. Which is actually, oh my god, it's great. That's great. This is such a great scene.
Yeah, and that was probably the best scene in the movie.
Agreed. You can't top something like that.
No, you really can't. And why would you try? I remember seeing on Twitter some people saying, "How's about a remake of this movie?" And you just had a lot of people,
No,
"No," even on YouTube, and you had everyone like, "No." Yeah, but no.
no, negative. Like, no, it's good as it is. Like, I don't need Zendaya's face attached to anything going on in this film.
Yeah.
Because
It's like,
it would be Tom Holland as Wesley and Zendaya as Buttercup, and I don't want that. I don't want that. I don't even want to think about that.
of course, who would?
There's also
And
little things that we kind of miss too, or Miracle Max.
Miracle Max was good, but um, I kind of think that he gets a little too much attention from some.
It's Billy Crystal. I mean,
Yeah,
he's gonna chew the scene.
yeah, and everything in it. And but he was quite good. Uh, and he's mostly dead. He's not dead. Um, there's of course Buttercup, who's basically useless, but she's supposed to be. She's a damsel.
Yeah, it
But
was.
Aubrey Wright does do a good job of the character.
Yeah, I feel like modern storytelling has basically eviscerated the concept of the damsel in distress because now we have to have women play a significant or more significant role in things. And yeah,
Well,
I get
when I
it.
s- when I say useless, I mean like we could still have had uh scenes like uh, maybe not more scenes, but deeper scenes
I
with the
think
character.
though I will say that the dream sequence she had because I that one stuck out in my mind
That
like the
one was
most.
good. I like
Yeah,
that one.
yeah, that was kind of like when I was a kid, I saw that for the first time. I thought she did get married to him immediately. And then like
Well,
I related to the lady that was basically just dressing her down in her dream.
yeah, Dream Mom. But when I say deeper scenes,
Mm-hmm.
I often okay. When I think of damsels in distress, now I'm a Hercules Legendary Journeys fanboy,
Mm-hmm.
and in Legendary Journeys, every season has is chock full of damsels. But what it does with the damsels is you develop a profound understanding of their psychology, of where they're coming from, and their thinking, and um, their point of view. Because the series really works hard to try to make sure that you understand their perspective, and that just because a character is a damsel doesn't mean she's a one note character. She can be very well developed. And this is important and even integral to the story. And it's something I deeply, deeply admire about Legendary Journeys and appreciate. Now, in my fiction, when I'm writing over primarily on Substack, but also on
Oh,
Royal Road, I in my stories I have a lot of damsels, but I try to imbue them with a life all their own. And it's kind of important you do so
mm.
because like if you don't, people won't like it.
Well,
Buttercup has some good scenes,
mm-hmm.
but then there's other scenes where she's so melancholic, like he didn't come, with the he
Excuse me,
didn't
I'm
come
gonna
to
go
the
kill
rescue.
myself now.
Yeah, that was like holy crap, lady.
That got dark.
Yeah, that escalated real fast, as the one meme goes. And yeah, that really, yeah.
There's a question in chat. Did Xena have damsels? Yes, she did. Yeah, a lot of the secondary characters in the episodes were damsels in distress. There's times where even Gabrielle was considered a damsel in distress. There's
Yeah, even Xena was a damsel.
yeah, to an extent, Xena was a damsel in her own show, especially when it came to like some of the Ares episodes.
Well, what I'm thinking of is the Hercules episodes where he had to constantly rescue her,
Yeah,
and every episode she appears in Legendary Journeys, he has to rescue her.
I think. Well, I mean, to an extent, Joxer was a damsel. It's like,
Yeah,
yeah,
Roxer was disgraceful. I hate the Xena series, so I'll
yeah,
just say
I can
he was a
understand.
disgrace to mankind.
You got to
Um,
remember that was the girl power part of history that led into where
yeah,
we are now.
that was the gay woke version.
It
Um,
was definitely it was like lesbian fan fiction.
yeah, and the writing in Xena was terrible compared to Legendary Journeys.
They had a demographic that they were catering to.
Yeah, um, but all the smarter people of quality were watching Legendary Journeys.
Those of which Vina had a
Yeah,
lot of hand lotion on their shopping list.
yeah.
Jer-
Like,
Jurgens had a lot of stock in that show.
yeah. That being said, the funny thing is the hottest chick in the two series was, well, after Alexandra Tidings, of course, because her Aphrodite was just holy crap, she was
Oh,
gorgeous.
that's fair. That's fair.
But the second hottest was I forget her name, but the actress who played Morrigan, the half goddess Irish woman.
Okay.
I was over in the Legendary Journeys,
I
and
might have to refresh my memory on that. It's been years.
oh, she's freaking hot. But
Oh well. I mean, she definitely falls within your type.
yeah, well, what can I say? I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
redheads are hotter than everything else under the sun, along with blondes.
You can't argue.
Who can? But you've got well, Buttercup. It's just like I said. It's just the well, my love didn't come to rescue me. I guess I better go kill myself. Um, Lady, uh, you could try escaping out the window. I don't know, or you could just go off yourself. I guess that's one way of handling
It's our Hitler
your
moment.
problems.
It was our Hitler moment.
Yeah.
Well, the person I love didn't come. Well, might as well go kill myself.
Yeah. It's a good thing Fiona wasn't reacting that way. Otherwise, Shrek would have been really dark.
Oh shoot!
But
All right, dragon, just burn me.
yeah, it's like, and that dragon was bloodthirsty enough to do it. I'm just saying. Um, but yeah, like the last scene with Humperdinck was hilarious. Just with how it's like, drop your sword. Drops it. Now sit in that chair. Okay. Now tie him up. Once he's nice and tied up, it's like, yeah, okay. Wesley finally lets his legs give out and whatnot.
That was a great bluff.
Yeah. I like how you have Humperdinck. I knew it. I knew he was bluffing. No, you didn't. It was
No.
my
You
fault.
fell for the bluff.
He didn't want to test him, and then to turn around and Nigo's like, "Yeah, do you want me to dispatch of him?" Like,
It's like, want me to kill him? Because, like, it would just take 2 seconds. And yeah.
that's a good point, Fallen King.
What
You
what do
have
you
to
say?
you have to realize, or you have to understand that Buttercup is a woman. Let's not let the propaganda make us forget biological reality.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah,
Very good
it's
point.
true. I can't deny the truth of that. Like, there's two minds of that, or that handling situations, and I'm noticing that with my daughter. She'll go through the worst case scenario instead of actually thinking her way through things, and I'm like, oh, don't do that.
Yeah.
Combative reprogramming is the thing, I guess. Let's see. Yeah, I like the fact that Wesley was just like, no, let him live his long life, knowing that he's a coward.
Which philosophically, for a lot of men, that is intolerable. Um, it's coded into our DNA in a lot of cases that we just cannot handle it. The knowledge that we are a coward, and it's very much coded into also European and even Asian culture that better to die on your feet than to be a coward.
Yeah. Was it
And
the die on your feet then live on your knees?
yeah, and the trouble is Humperdinck, cracked and decided to beg. Like, there's a reason why the most repeated phrase in the Bible is "Do not be afraid," and it's because the idea is God's trying to train the Christian mind to be brave,
Yeah.
and have confidence in that God will take care of you.
And
Like
he
it, it-
there's a good point though that he basically he could have turned around. Humperdinck could have turned around and actually chased both Buttercup and Wesley to the ends of the earth if he wanted to.
yeah, and the trouble is he ends up having to live like a coward, and that's a big curse, and that's probably worse than killing him because he's got to live with the knowledge he's not brave, he's weak,
He
and
let everything he could have slip through his fingers because he did not act.
yeah, he gave in to weakness. And this is really something that um, is very important with this character because, Wesley completely curb stomped him psychologically and spiritually. And I wonder if we shouldn't maybe look at their trading barbs and even the drop your sword moment as maybe a kind of combat scene.
Mm.
And ironically, I would argue once again, I'll turn to Star Wars, but Episode Two, where Jango Fett and Obi Wan basically just trade barbs,
Mm.
and that's kind of a scene that's like a successor to this one, where Jango and Obi Wan are exchanging barbs and comments about each other, and like I was hired on a man by a man over on the moon of Bogdan, that
Mm.
sort of thing. But the way they're saying it, what they're saying and staring into each other's eyes, they're they're sword fighting. But the difference is Django and Obi, neither of them give in. Neither of them give an inch. And arguably, uh, Django Fett wins that fight.
Hmm.
Um, and then in the Starfighter dog fight, Django Fett wins again because he's obviously the better pilot than
I,
Obi.
I continue that conversation. I got to take the dog out for a second. I'll be right back.
But as for Humperdinck and Wesley, it's not a very even fight, unlike with Star Wars. It's a very one-sided thing because Humperdinck is not strong-willed, while Wesley very much is strong-willed.
That's because there's a part of it that's because Wesley has something he wants to fight for, and something's preventing him from getting it.
I'll also posit a bit of the Robert E. Howard argument. You have civilized man who is softened by a cushy life in velvet and silk, and he's unaccustomed to the brutal barbarism, like the hardship of like having a quarrel for his very bread and whatnot in his very life. While barbarous man is has been trained in the rigors of suffering and been exposed to the elements, so to speak. So that while Humperdinck has fought and even hunted, he's done so in a very protected manner. While Wesley has had to fight in the most savage of conditions. Very little protection was offered by the previous Dread Pirate Roberts. So that's what I'd argue. There's also it's the barbarous man versus the civilized man, but there's also the urban man versus the rural man. The
Okay.
rural man is basically a farmer. He has to eke out a living, otherwise he dies.
Yeah.
And rural man, like, and well, okay, while city man has to, he's got every convenience offered to him. And really, this is kind of what's the difference between Wesley and Humperdinck. Wesley is a very princely, aristocratic man, but he's a man who's had to forge himself in the crucible of life and put himself together. And he has suffered and endured, yeah, but um, if you also compare, like, um, today, not to be too harsh, but I like, for example, I'm a rural guy,
Hmm.
and like Daniel has had to carve open an animal once in order to for us to enjoy a good meal. And
It stunk.
yeah, that was your only objection. Oh, it kind of stinks. Oh well.
I was gonna
Like,
say, like I've heard stories about field dressing and how
yeah, Daniel, I think all you said was it kind of stunk, but it was fun. And that's the thing. Whereas whenever and like um whenever we've like I wasn't around for that because I was, I think, out of the local area. I was out of town. And the thing is, you look at how we handle things, and we've done farming and we've done odd jobs like that. And then you have someone in the cities. Um, Most of the people in the cities, like, it's hard to take them seriously in a lot of ways.
they don't have that
Life's,
experience.
yeah, and um, it's this sort of thing where, um, also as a writer, like I'm reading indie fiction these days, and a lot there's a huge difference even with the blue collar of the cities and those of us out in the countryside. And in a way, I can see that it is very much there's a divide between urban and rural. Rural people are like, life is rawer and rougher in a lot of ways, even in today's age. While in the cities, everything is a lot more cushy and whatnot. And this this difference is also something that I've noticed. Um, there's a difference between the two perceptions of nations and the world. Like the way Daniel and I might perceive our country versus how someone in Toronto or Ottawa perceives it is worlds apart.
Hmm.
And is one outlook better than the other? Yes, but like, let's not bash Toronto and Ottawa too badly.
But that's the national sport.
Yeah, I know, but like, it's too easy. It's low hanging fruit. Um, but you look at, like, let's say how a New Yorker might perceive America versus, let's say, yourself. Is one way of looking at it better than the other? Absolutely, your way is obviously going to be better than theirs. I'm joking here, but this is the nature of of a country. Like, most countries are rural or urban, and really the backbone of the nation is typically the rural part, but they're the people are mostly ungrateful towards them. Um, and there is a barbarian versus civilized man. Uh,
It's
kind of,
the well our groceries come from the grocery store. It doesn't come from anywhere else mentality, which
oh
I think is hilarious. But like, the
yeah, yeah. It's like, oh my gosh, because yeah, Dan, like I said, we've done some farming, and it's like, no, you ingrate. It's not, you idiot. It's like what we end up thinking. And we have seen that. It's like, especially in like some of the cities we've lived near. It's like, what's funny is that when you ask kids, I've never had a student say it comes from the grocery store, really. They're like, doesn't it come from farmers? It's like, the kid can fucking figure it out. How come the idiot in like the city can't?
It's inconceivable.
Yeah.
That's a nice way to wrap it around.
Yeah,
So there's
but that's Humperdinck and Wesley are two polar opposite forces. And to an extent, you do need urban centers. But the problem is, you can't have too much of them. And Humperdinck is also the upper class, but he's lost the noblesse oblige. That is to say, the sense of piety that one should feel and devotion to one's subjects that most royals, many royals in history, did have. He doesn't have it because he hasn't had to struggle for his throne. And this is a polar opposite to Wesley, who, he fights his own battles. And, he's just a farm boy. As well, Buttercup makes very clear throughout the intro of the story. So yeah, then we got the kissy scene.
yeah. I'm reading through some things, whatever. And actually, there's a good comment in the chat. Is Wesley strong-willed, or is his single-minded focus of getting Buttercup back driving him forward?
Isn't that the same thing?
Like, it's one-track minded and strong-willed. They both kind of play a factor in it.
Yeah, that's what I mean. They're both separate issues and the same. Like, to be single-minded about something, that does give you some resolve and a strength of will. And that is something to bear very much in mind when it comes to, just like trying to get what you want and whatnot. It is very important. Like, for example, let me look at another piece of fiction. Goku from Dragon Ball Z in the Saiyan Saga is very single-minded about saving Gohan and his friends. He doesn't have any other goal, but it gives him a great deal of fortitude mentally, and it gives him a lot of resolve. And that's how he gets so much shit done.
Yeah.
And like Goku by no means should have stood a chance against Vegeta, just in terms of bronze. But because he's so much smarter than Vegeta and he is more determined and he needs to win, he does win. Will is everything, as Ra's al Ghul would put it. So this is the sort of thing that I'd argue single-mindedness is probably a good thing. Because sometimes it'll win you great battles. I don't know if that makes any sense.
No. I think I understand. Well, and then it's a what was it? It's kind of a mind over matter situation where your motivation drives you forward to your goal. If you have one single great motivation and you are devoted to that motivation, it's going to push you beyond your limits in order to get things done. I've experienced this in my workplace because like I think a couple weeks ago we had a blizzard. We had a blizzard last week, but we had a blizzard a week before. And my assistant, because I'm only one of two people that do my job at my workplace. So my assistant, he was basically snowed into his apartment complex, couldn't get out. I had to single-handedly get everything done because there was school tomorrow. There's definitely going to be school next day. So if you are single-mindedly focused on getting that done, you'll go through hell and back in order to like accomplish that goal.
And that's, well, yeah, but I do think that sometimes too much of it, like everything in moderation, I guess.
Yeah.
But in most of these cases, the single-mindedness is bolstering as well. But anyways,
it's all of those are ingredients to a well-baked cake.
Yeah, and I don't think.
Is your robot out? Okay.
I've got.
You're roboting.
I don't think I've got too much more to say about this movie, other than it's really good. It's
There's
fun. It's low budget, but like you can't really criticize it too much.
the thing with the 80s though, or 80s films that I've noticed is the ones that do the least in terms of like high end production, like are the ones that seem to be the most memorable.
Yeah.
I have some little factoids that I want to throw out since we're at the end of it. Mandy Patinkin said that Inigo Montoya is probably one of his favorite roles.
Well, who could blame him?
Yeah.
It's one of his best.
Here's a quote. The moment I read the script, I loved every part of Inigo Montoya. Patinkin told Entertainment Weekly. That character just spoke to me profoundly. I'd lost my own father. He died at 53 years old from pancreatic cancer in 1972. I didn't think about it consciously, but I think that there was part of me that thought, if I get this man in black, my father will come back. I talked to my dad all the time during filming, and it was very healing for me.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, you could tell like he actually, I think that's the reason why him and Carrie Elway's characters are the most standout characters from the film. It's like there is so much investment that was that was shown with the characters. See, Wallace Shawn was brilliant but always on edge. Shawn, who played Vizzini the Sicilian, is like his character, a man of dizzying intellect. He has a history degree from Harvard, studied philosophy and economics from Oxford. In fact, on a day off from filming The Princess Bride, Shawn went to Oxford to give a guest lecture on British and American literature. But Shawn was inconsolably nervous for the entirety of the filming.
That's which actor?
That was the Sicilian.
Oh my gosh, and he gave a lecture on British literature.
Yeah.
Wow. The dude had an IQ in spades.
He was smarter than the character he played.
Yeah. Inconceivable.
I don't know.
I don't think that word means what you think it means. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So Shawn was racked with insecurity, perpetually convinced that he was going to be fired after every bad take. Danny is intimidable, Shawn said. Each scene we did, I pictured how we would have done it in my head, and I knew we could have never possibly done it the way he could have done it.
Interesting.
Oh, here's a good one. I'll do like two more, and then we can kind of cut it loose. But the duel between Wesley and Inigo Montoya was excruciatingly researched and rehearsed. So Goldman spent months researching 17th century sword fighting manuals to craft Wesley and Inigo's duel. All the references to characters making to their specific moves and styles are accurate to fencing. Elway's and Patinkin, neither of whom had much of any fencing experience, spent months training to perfect it right and left-handed. I knew that my job was to become the world's greatest sword fighter, Patinkin recalled in Elway's book. I trained for about 2 months in New York and went to London, and Carrie and I trained every day that we weren't shooting for 4 months. There was no stuntman involved in any of the fights except for the one flip in the air. Even after months of pre-shoot training, the fencing instructors came to set, and there were a few free minutes we would pull Elway's and Patinkin aside to work on the choreography for the scenes, which was intentionally one of the last to be shot. So it was the same level of care, because I remember when we did was it Mask of Zorro, and we were talking about that, like they had similar levels of sword training or fencing or sword and fencing training. It's been months. Yeah, it's been months since we did the Zorro video.
Yeah, now that I think about it. Like, I don't know what else to say. Just wow, it's been a while.
Yeah, no, there's this is the last one I'll give. One particular on-screen injury was not faked in this movie. As soon as Wesley recognizes Count Rugen as a six-fingered man, the script calls for the Count to knock our hero unconscious with the butt of his sword. In filming, Christopher Guest, who played Rugen, was naturally reluctant to really hit Elwes for fear of hurting him. Unfortunately, this reticence was reading on screen, and take after take failed to look convincing. Finally, Elwes suggested that Guest just go for it, at least tapping him on the head to get the reaction timing right. The tap was a little too hard, and Elwes was legitimately knocked unconscious. He later awoke in the hospital emergency room. It's that take with Elwes actually passing out that made it to the film.
Wow.
That is funny.
That's interesting. It's very interesting. Oh, he also had a broken toe when he was filming too. But
who is he? Aragorn?
It's Carrie freaking Elwes.
I know. I couldn't resist the Aragorn reference. Okay. Our dog is just trying to climb up almost on the keyboard.
Yeah, I was gonna say I gotta make dinner, and I could get my dog from outside anyway, so we could pretty much like button it up here.
Puppy, listen. Can we have 5 minutes? He's just looking at us like nuts.
I guess also the original ending.
I prefer this one.
Yeah, there's an alternate ending where Fred Savage looks out of the window to see Peter Falk get into his car, and he also sees his Finnick, Inigo, and Wesley and Buttercup all on white horses. I don't think that would have worked as well as the original ending.
Yeah,
I agree.
I also think that the movie ending is better than the book ending.
I'm kind of tempted to get the book. I might have to do that.
Sure. Carrie Elwes also did the audio narration.
Ooh. Well, I know the screenplay writer was actually the author of the book, so that's why everything just seemed like perfect. It's just this movie was pretty good. What are we doing next, or what do we want to do next?
I don't know.
There was something that we were going to do after Princess Bride is what we're going to do. That was the suggestion, but there was something else after that, and I can't remember it for the life of me.
Let me just track down our chat in Discord. We did The Unholy, Interstellar, Princess Bride, and no, we didn't actually schedule anything next. What are we doing next Saturday? I don't know. What do we do? Let's see. What movie would you like to see?
I don't know if Last Dragon would be. Well, Last Dragon's a different movie. I don't know if that would pop off with you guys or not. But
what's Last Dragon?
Last Dragon was 1980s kind of callback to a bunch of martial arts films, like a lot of Bruce Lee's videography. It's kind of like a 80s black martial arts film.
Yeah,
I was gonna say that's hit or miss with a lot of people. That if you're not of the culture, it's kind of hard to get people that interested in that type of thing.
Yeah, not gonna lie, I kind of like if I'm gonna watch one of these martial arts movies, I'd rather it be Mortal Kombat or something.
No, Mortal Kombat is a great film.
Yeah. Any other one you kind of want to watch?
Well, that Friday the 13th, not 5, but like if we did the final chapter, that's actually not a bad one.
Okay. I know we did number 6 once.
Yeah, we did. I think we did 6. I know. Yeah, that was our first one that we did.
Yeah. So part four works.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the introduction of Tommy Jarvis, so that's definitely a lot to talk about there.
Yeah. And our dog is now sulking and pouting.
Uh, yeah. Dog owner life. I understand that very well.
If he doesn't get his own way, he's finally looking at me, but he's rolling over because he wants his belly.
He, see, your
Oh.
dog's not a control freak. He just likes things going his way.
Yeah, but our dog generally is a control freak.
My dog's a bully. Like, he'll if he sees you eating, it's almost like was there that joke about the was it when a dog's eating and you interrupt them is don't tread on me, but when you're eating and the dog's trying to get your food, it's our food, comrade.
Yeah, that's exactly it. They're communist that way.
Only until it's their food being encroached upon.
Yeah. Then you face walls.
It's like dogs are fascinating creatures, and really, they really are.
Well, dogs are basically, well, they're nature's perfect animal.
It's why human, men and dogs get along well, because kind of very straightforward in our the way we handle things.
Yeah, and dogs, if we're being honest, are basically how men should be.
That's why it's man's best friend.
Yep. Although maybe it's a good thing we're not as whiny. Well, except for us French, we are that whiny. But
Black people, we have Keith Sweat, so yeah.
uh,
He's a singer, and most of his songs sounds like he's pleading.
so yeah, I guess we'll leave it there. So I'll just encourage everyone to subscribe because this channel's pretty freaking awesome.
Yep, we are actually as we speak. The last episode, which was Interstellar, has just been uploaded to Rumble, so that is available now.
Yay! I forgot about that one.
I stealthily uploaded that.
Okay, I wouldn't have known.
Actually, that's commentary wise, it's a good episode. I mean, even if the movie isn't that great.
Okay, well, our commentary is better than the movie.
Well, that's the whole point of why I do these things.
Yeah.
Like, even the boss fight of the movie stuff, like if the movie is terrible, and oh my god, we watched a stinker last night. We watched the Far Cry movie, which is based on the game, and it's Uwe Boll's probably one of his worst films, but the commentary I thought was pretty good. And the weird thing is like I can't make the argument that all of Uwe Boll's films are terrible, because some of them, like Postal, was fucking hilarious. It was a great comedy, which he makes fun of himself in that movie and claims that his movies are funded with Nazi gold. So there's that. And Blood Rain was actually entertaining. It wasn't great. It was entertaining.
Yeah.
But that's the show.
Yeah.
Join us next time for Friday the 13th Part 4. The final chapter, which is actually, that was one of my first favorite Friday the 13th movies, if I remember correctly.
Okay, I saw all of them like one after the other up until 6, and then I kind of went.
After 4, it just gets dicey.
Well, I find after 6 it gets like 6 was the best one in the entire series, and then everything afterwards was just crap.
Which one was 6? Was that the telekinesis girl?
No, that's Tommy Jarvis.
Yeah, Jason Lives. Yeah, you're right. Jason Lives is that's the kind of the point where it's like, yeah, we can end it here, and we didn't. In terms of shitty Jason movies, Jason Takes Manhattan is like the worst, but it's the best to like razz on. Like it's 90% soundstage and 1% like walking around Times Square. It is terrible. It's terrible.
Mm.
It's about as bad as an Asian lady being power bombed on a dance floor, which Jason actually did. Anyways, thank you for joining us for this. We will see you next boss fight. Take care. Have a great rest of your day.